Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Significant Coaching with Matt Rogers. I'm your host. We are the podcast where we dive deep into the stories, strategies, and journeys of coaches who are making a lasting impact on and off the field. This week, I'm pumped up to introduce my guest, Coach Matt Midkiff, the head baseball coach at NCAA Division III, Swarthmore College, a proud member of the Centennial Conference. Coach Midkiff is entering his 12th season leading the Garnet and is the winningest coach in program history with 232 wins, 170 losses, and 2 ties during his tenure, an impressive 577 winning percentage. Under his leadership, Swarthmore has captured 2 Centennial Conference Championships in 2018 and 2022 and made NCAA tournament appearances in both those years. In 2018, Coach Midkiff led Swarthmore to the best season in school history, including a trip to the NCAA Division III World Series and a final national ranking of number 6. During that 2018 season, he was also named the Centennial Conference and Mid-Atlantic Region Coach of the Year. Coach Midkiff has developed a powerhouse program over the years, coaching 38 all-conference players, 15 all-region honorees, and 3 All-Americans. Beyond the numbers, he's a builder of culture. He's a mentor of young men and someone who truly understands the long game as it pertains to college athletics. Today, we're going to talk about what it takes to sustain success in Division III baseball, how recruiting has evolved over the years, and how Coach Midkiff helps student athletes grow into competent, capable young adults on and off the diamond. But before we jump into that conversation, a quick reminder, you can find my book, Significant Recruiting, the playbook for prospective college athletes, along with my blog, the Recruiting Launchpad courses, and past podcast episodes, all at CoachMattRogers.com. That's Coach Matt Rogers, ROGERS.com. And if you're not already following along, you can connect with me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Coach Matt Rogers and on Twitter at RecruitCoach4U. That's the number 4 and the letter U. I'd love to hear from you. All right, let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Coach Matt Midkiff of Swarthmore College Baseball. Hey, Coach.
Hey Matt, how are you?
Good. Hey, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no, this is really cool. I'm excited to hop on with you.
Well, I
Exactly.
really appreciate it, man. I was a college coach a long time, and I miss walking across the hall to you and saying, "Hey, I'm dealing with this kid. How would you deal with it? And let's
Yeah.
talk shop. Let's talk recruiting." So this kind of lets me get some of that basketball, baseball, coaching Jones out of my system, and I'm having a blast doing it.
Yeah, no, it's that is one of the interesting things is you are all coaches and there are some commonalities, but also there's no other baseball coach I can go to at my school,
Right?
right, and talk to them.
Yeah.
So it is interesting how we're always trying to beat each other, but we can't get enough of talking to each other
That's
and trying to
right.
help each other too. So it is
That's
a
right.
it's an interesting dynamic, but a lot of fun.
I had Scott Winterburn, who's the head coach at University of Laverne. He was across the hallway from me for years, and I had him on the podcast a couple months ago, and it was just like, man, this is the part of coaching I miss is talking about kids, talking coaching, how do
Yeah.
we get better? And there's so few people that understand what we do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, it's yeah, everybody thinks they know, they see it from one side. The best is when you have a player that then transitions to coaching
Yeah.
and they go, "Oh, now I know why you guys are crazy. Like, now I know why you're the way you are." It's a little validating when they move to the other side and go, "Oh yeah, this is it makes sense the way you're doing it, even though I questioned everything you did when I was playing." So,
Exactly. They don't appreciate the depth of what you're doing every day and how many balls you have in the air and how many responsibilities you have. Parents don't understand it. And oftentimes the people above you don't understand it because they've never been head coaches. And so it's really cool. It's really cool what you've been doing. But you got done talking about how hard it is to share what we do and to find people that relate. It's so cool when you have a player that is going through that process for the first time and being a head coach and learning that. What are some of the things that you talk to your assistants about? Because I'm sure all your assistants want to be head coaches. Your players, a lot of them want to be head coaches. Are there things that you try and instill in them to get them ready for that journey?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is to try to always take a step back and think about the big picture. And oftentimes we are passionate and we want to win. We want to make that decision quickly, and really stepping back and thinking through it and thinking through all angles of the decision is more of a head coach mentality. And I think what's great about being an assistant is you can just fire stuff off and we should do this, we should do this. I like this. I like this guy. I like the, and you have the freedom to do that. And then when you get in the big chair, you really have to take it all in and listen to all the perspectives and see all the pluses and minuses of it. And oftentimes those decisions might be different from what an assistant coach would recommend or want you to do. But
Right.
there's a lot of, you learn a lot from being patient. You learn a lot from waiting instead of doing that. I think as anybody that's married knows that's probably the best way to do it, even
Yeah.
though we try it. We probably don't do it as well as we
Exactly.
should. The patience and not being so emotional about it. And we talk to our players about when they're assessing their performance or something along those lines, try to take the emotions out of it and let's analyze what the data says.
Yeah.
And it is what it is, right? Your at bat is what it is, and you might feel sad about your at bat, but that doesn't being sad doesn't really help us get better. So let's look at what we can use from that at bat to help us move on to the next at bat and be better moving forward.
That's right. And you see it on ESPN talked about year round about NFL quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks. Do we sit them? Do we start them? Do we play them? And they all fail. They all fail that first year. To see what the kid at Washington's doing or the kid at the Texans did last year, it's such an anomaly. And baseball players, they get to the pros, and it's rare when you see anybody make the pros anymore under 24 years old. It used to be there'd be that 19-year-old, that Ken Griffey every year, but you don't see that anymore. And a lot of it has to be for those reasons, don't you think?
I do. I think as a society, we've lost our patience too.
Yeah.
You mentioned the NFL, head coach comes in, doesn't win in 2 years, he's gone. High level college sports, don't win early, you're gone. And most of our greatest coaches that we hold to high esteem did not have it figured out in year one or two or five.
Right.
So I think that's just a sad commentary maybe on where we are and the expectations and what is it we want these young people to get from this experience. And I
It,
think we're telling them different things, and that's a tough thing to reconcile as a parent or as a just as a member of society at large.
it's so good to hear you say that because that's been a topic so big on my mind. I just spoke at an AD convention a couple weeks ago, and I wrote a blog on it last week about we no longer coach our coaches. We hire you based on your resume, and then we assume you know how to recruit, plan a budget, balance a budget, coach your assistants, hire assistants, handle your finances, handle travel, have all the templates made. We just assume you know how to do the 50 things that go in your program. So how do we do that? How do we coach? How do we enable an athletic director or a president or a superintendent, a principal? How do we give them the okay to say, coach us? Tell us what you think you're seeing. What are we missing? What do I need? How do we do that as a head coach to an assistant coach?
I think the person in the position of the mentor needs to just ask a lot of questions. I think we're best as individuals when we get to it on our own, but somebody needs to lead us there. And so I might not know the questions that I need to be asked to look at the things that I need to look at. So
Right.
I think it's just ask those questions, let the person get to where they want to be. And it seems to work with players, I think. What did you see there? What did he throw you? What was your plan?
Right.
And then you figure out this kid's walking up to the plate without much of a plan, or he's changing his plan from pitch to pitch as opposed to sticking to the plan that we talked about in the scouting report. And once you start to see the light bulb go on, it's okay. What do you have now? What can we learn from your process, because the process stuff and all the best coaches I listen to are so process oriented,
Right.
and which is so hard, as we just talked about, in such an outcome based position to then sell process. And so as an AD or a principal or somebody in charge of a coach, I think you have to look at what is the process, and that process might be a 2, 3, 4, 5 year process, but is it moving in the right direction? Is the coach committed to it? Are the players and assistants committed to it? And if they are, the outcome will eventually get there.
Right.
We didn't make the conference playoffs until my sixth season, which is the year we ended up going to the World Series.
Right.
Thankfully, RAD saw growth. They saw the players were invested and enjoying their experience and all those kinds of things. And fortunately, I don't have as much pressure in my position as some might. We're not making or breaking the bottom line for the college, but
Right.
it is a significant part of the experience that our student athletes have, and so winning is a big part of that. Everybody would rather win than lose.
Exactly.
It's hard to have a great experience when you're getting your butt kicked all the time.
That's right. When you go 15 and 29, nobody's happy with that. But is there growth? Is their kids advancing and getting better? Does it feel healthy? It takes a really great evaluator to understand that difference. And I think that's a big part of where our problem is in sports right now. We've lost so many great coaches that are tired of the portal, they're tired of recruiting, they're tired of this or that, tired of the social media, tired of it's me, I got to have me, but I got more time, more at bats. So I want to go back to what you said, because I think it's a really great point about the kid that's in the batter box. You've given them a scouting report, right? So they might know this guy likes to start with a fastball. This guy has struggled the last 3 games to find the strike zone, whatever that may be. At what point do we take a step back and go, have we taught them how to analyze that scouting report we've given them? Are we giving them the tools to be able to think on their own, even though they have a scouting report in front of them and they know what we're telling them is the usual, the norm, the average? Have we taught them how to analyze it on their own and think on their own? I don't think I learned that till my 5th or 6th year as a head coach. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And what's funny is our players are so high academic. They're
Right.
such thinkers. We oftentimes have to have them think less,
Right.
right? So
Yes.
they try to outthink the pitcher to the point where they're on the opposite end of the scouting report. They think he thinks I think this, so if he thinks I think this, and I think he's going to think that if I think that, then and so it can
Yeah.
be paralysis by analysis.
Right.
A lot of times you have to try to find that optimal zone where we are taking what's given, but also we need to be able to adjust. I'm looking
Right.
for this pitch, but he might throw me something different based on what just happened, based on where we are in the game, all those kinds of things. So
Right.
they have to be fluid in their thinking, but also have a plan that can give them at least a foundation to start from, and then we can make some micro adjustments as we move through the at bat or through the game.
Yeah, it's funny. You tell me how this has been for you, but I've always had kids that are like, I want more freedom, or tell me what to do. And there's never that middle ground. I want the independence, but I want a good sky report. I want to understand how to read this pitcher. I want to understand how to attack that strike zone, how to see that pitch a little bit longer in the zone. It's getting a kid to be balanced in their growth. And I'm sure that more with your juniors and seniors than anything else.
Absolutely. If you can find a player that's able to do that in their first or second year,
Right.
then you've got someone special. And we can tell pretty early on if a hitter has command of the strike zone and understands what they're looking for and those kinds of things, because that's really the hard part. The hitting part they should be able to do
Right.
because they're at our level.
Right.
But the thinking through those things, being able to recognize, I think there's a huge visual cognition piece to hitting
Yes.
where it's really hard to take somebody who can't recognize certain pitches and make them recognize them. I think it's the way our brain works in conjunction with our eyes. And by no means am I a scientist, but nobody would accuse me of that. But I just think there are guys that can really see pitches well, and they're off of a pitch that's not going to end up in the zone. They're off of it right away. Where other guys, you could throw it to them 100 times, tell them what's coming, and they're not going to be able to do it.
It's an amazing sport because of that. I don't know if there's anything harder to do in all of sports than hit a fastball or a curveball and not knowing what's coming at you, and then try and put a little piece of lumber on that little ball. Right?
It's incredible. I watch obviously the highest levels, and I'm amazed that anyone ever hits a pitch. Just watching what these guys can
Yeah.
do on the mound, it's incredible. And I think I've read where they say your brain shouldn't be able to process it that fast, right? But these guys are just they're so good at that, and the pitchers are so good, and the technology is so good, and everything has really improved. And we saw it this past weekend with our games, and we're talking as coaches 10 years ago, most of the guys you're seeing are 82, 84,
Right.
and we're seeing consistently 88 to 92
At the D3 level.
at the Division III level
Wow.
with a second pitch.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's really, and I think there are different companies that have gotten into the science of pitching. It's very formulaic. If you want to throw harder, these are things that you can do, and it helps you throw harder. Now you'll get the contrary to that, which is, but nobody knows how to pitch anymore, right? So it's a give and take, and we've seen hitters really adjust to that. So even that higher velocity, hitters are used to it, they practice it.
Yeah.
And so really it's coming full circle where you've got the old school type pitcher who can change speeds and really locate. That guy's now at a premium again, where
Yeah.
it's because coaches are tired of watching 96 go to the backstop. So it's funny how these things sort of cycle through, and hitters aren't ready to hit that stuff because they don't see it,
Yeah.
because everybody's throwing harder. So yeah, it is funny how all these things change and change relatively quickly. And I think the COVID time period gave pitchers a chance to really focus on themselves and getting to their optimal level.
Yeah.
And so the question now becomes, how do you do that within the context of a team practice and developing the team
Right.
mentality, right? And so
Right.
there's a lot of stuff that's going into this from the baseball side that's just really interesting to think about, and a lot of stuff that myself and my coaching colleagues talk about all the time.
It's very interesting stuff for me. You hear again, I'll go back to the NFL. They have the quarterback room, the linebacker room, the safety room, the D line room. Do you have a pitcher's room? Do you guys do any of that high level where your older guys can share, coaching staff can share, you're watching hitters, watching pitchers together? Do you guys do a lot of that?
We like our pitchers to talk a lot.
Yeah.
And if you know any pitchers, they just love to talk to each other anyway. And who knows, most of the time it's not about pitching, but it does really help when we're constantly talking about the message and the purpose of what we're trying to do. Again, back to that process. Here are the pitches you'll throw. This is what we want them to do. This is what we want the result to be. This pitch isn't very good right now. That one's going to be one we're going to shelf. We're going to focus on these two or three and get really good at these, because the role that you will have, that's what we'll need from you. And then this other guy might need the other thing. And so they are just, I would say in the last 4 to 5 years, they are so in tune to what everyone says about pitching, about everybody's perspective, any expert on X or anywhere else, they're seeing it, they're ingesting it. And so I think that the tough part is, as again, in a team setting, how do we keep our pitchers doing as much of the same thing as possible, knowing that each guy might need a little something different?
Yeah. I've been watching, they've been doing these interviews with Barry Bonds and Greg Maddux. They'll interview one and they'll interview the other, and they're watching the same clips from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'm just amazed, Coach, that Greg Maddux could tell you the pitch he threw, why he threw it 20 years later. And Bonds is going, I know what's coming here. I've already seen him do this 100 different times. I know he's not going to pitch me inside because he knows I'll take it out.
Yeah.
So Maddox pulls his catcher out and goes, "We're going to throw this one inside." And the catcher goes, "You told me to never call a pitch inside to Barry Bonds." He goes, "Just call it. It's coming inside. I just want you to know." Bonds hits it out. 3 months later, Bonds comes up to the plate in the playoffs against Maddox, and Maddox has his brain set up. Maddox is already thinking 3 months ahead that we might see these guys in the playoffs, and sets that inside pitch up to throw it outside and strike him out. It's amazing where you look at that D3 freshman and you look at a guy, Hall of Famers like Bonds and Maddox, how their brains can function, what we can do as a human being when we're talking about 90-mile-an-hour fastballs, when we're talking about 100-mile-an-hour fastballs, how that brain can develop. Can we get kids there? Can we teach them how to be that type of thinker?
I think we can get them on the road to doing that. That's one advantage I tell our guys. You're as smart as they come. This is, and I always joke with them as I say, they tell me you're as smart as they come because the common sense piece doesn't necessarily match the SAT score. So they're a lot of fun that way. And it gives me a slight advantage because I can operate in life and they have trouble sometimes there, but they could land a space shuttle and I wouldn't even be able to get in the building. So I think our guys want to be able to do those kind of things. Their age probably doesn't allow for that long-term thinking as much. But when we go over a plan and we say this is what we're going to try to accomplish, they really get it and they understand it. I think where Maddox is separated, obviously, is he knows every time he throws it, it will end up exactly where he wants it.
And then it comes down to that, doesn't it?
So if we can get that part first, then I think it'll be way easier to get them to be able to think along those lines. But really we try to simplify it because our guys will maybe go to the nth degree. And I'm sure there are coaches that try to do it a little bit differently, where some guys might need a little more of that from the coaching staff. But it's a lot of fun coaching high academic guys because they are always thinking, they always have questions, and it really keeps you on your toes as a coach because they will absolutely ask you that question.
That's right. They will. I remember the first time my team went to the national tournament, it was like year 4 or 5 for me as a head coach. And I was like, I got it. I figured it out. I understand how to do this. Next year we go 11-17. We get our butts kicked and our best player gets hurt. And I have no solution. And I realize I know nothing. I know nothing as a coach outside of I've got a lot of work to do and I have to get better. Have you gone through those cycles in your years?
Absolutely. And we had a great year in 2018, returned basically the entire team in 2019 and had some amazing wins out of conference. We're winning national level games.
Right.
And then in conference, we found a way to lose enough to miss the conference playoffs.
Right.
And what's funny is our basketball coach, Landry Kosmalski, who's done an amazing job at Swarthmore with the basketball program, he told me the next year's really hard. Expect everything to go against you, everything that went for you
Yep.
to get there, because it is. And once you've seen it, and then you see how the other years play out, you go back and realize how much had to go right for us to get where we were.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so he said it's going to go against you. He's like, guys are going to hit balls they shouldn't. Your guys are going to miss pitches they shouldn't miss. And he said it's just you have to be prepared for that. And as much as I tried and wanted to be and warned the team, hey, this could be tough. I don't know how you do it. I wish I had an answer, but I don't know how you guard against those things and keep your team so insulated and focused on the day to day. I think that's how you have to do it.
Yeah.
But it's really hard, and especially I can't imagine at these higher levels too, where it's always in your face and people are always asking you questions, and everywhere you turn, there's hey, this is what you did. You were great. You were great. What's happening? And that's got to be really tough to keep the guys focused on just every rep that they're doing in practice or in the weight room and then we'll let the chips fall where they may.
And what those people don't know is that Jimmy's girlfriend broke up with him. Todd failed 2 tests in a row that he needed to get A's on. Danny's grandpa's been sick. They don't know any of that. They don't know what you're dealing with from an emotional side and a cultural side every day. And those things change every 10 seconds. There's something new that's getting thrown at you, at these kids.
Yeah, I think one thing people don't realize, parents don't realize, is everybody's always wanting something from you as the coach.
Right.
And it's not it's just it is the job, but it's always, and obviously you have family considerations into that. You're part of an athletic department, so there's things that you need to do there. But somebody's texting about, coach, this, I'm sick, I have this meeting with a professor, what do you think about my outing? There's all these different things that are always coming at you. And what I think the difficulty in being a coach, and I would never want to do anything else, so I'll say that, but the difficulty is that people are always taking withdrawals from you.
Right.
You don't get a ton of deposits, right?
Exactly.
So it's really hard to refill. And I don't know. I think there are probably coaches who can take a vacation, but I haven't really met one.
I haven't met one.
Because it is, even at our level, and again, I can't imagine at some of those other levels, but even at our level, it never stops. There's always a recruit to talk to. There's always something fundraising going on, or something with a player in summer ball, or whatever it happens to be. So there's a lot that is pulled out of you. And you also, again, I have children and a wife and family obligations, and you want to do things in the community. And so there's a lot that is pulled from you. And so I think any parents of players or administrators, a little bit goes a long way when supporting a coach, saying, "Hey, you're doing a great job," or I saw you out there helping that kid by yourself one-on-one. That's really awesome." That means, I think, a lot to coaches, because we're always giving the
Right.
praise and the admiration and the attaboys, but
Yeah.
it doesn't really come to us that much.
Yeah. My daughter plays club volleyball, and I find myself after games, the coach will walk by and I go, "Hey, good job, coach. You're just doing a masterful job of herding cats." And just reminding them that there's somebody out there that's acknowledging that he's dealing with 15-year-old girls
Right.
who have a ton of talent and are more concerned about the TikTok they did right before the game or the TikTok they did right after the game. I never needed anybody to tell me I was doing a good job, but I always appreciated, like you just said, somebody said, "Hey, with what you had to deal with, it looks like you got 5 guys on the bench in street clothes. It looks like they're all pretty important players. The fact that you were in this game 3-2 and you didn't have 5 of your best kids," those are nice compliments. Those are things that people are appreciating, just a piece of what you're having to deal with, right?
Yeah, and I think that reminds us too, as coaches, that every player on our roster wants that from us.
Right.
They want to be acknowledged. And
Exactly.
so as many touch points as you can have with the players, and it's hard. They're in class, they're coming late, they're leaving early, they're doing all these things.
Yeah.
But as many touch points as you can have that might not even be athletic related, but just something about, oh, you're a neuroscience class. That sounds
Right.
pretty cool. And you could explain it to me and I won't understand it, but I'd love to hear you try to explain it to me. It's just, I think as people, the acknowledgement is something that we want. And again, like you said, I never felt I don't need anybody to tell me that. But if I'm speaking, like you have administrators that listen to the podcast, an administrator saying, "I saw you, I acknowledge you, just
Right.
looks like you're doing the right things. I talked to so and so's parents, having a great experience." Those are things that day we probably had 10 things that were wrong or negative or bad that we had to deal with. Getting that one back it's like when you're playing golf and you hit the one good shot and it brings you back to the, like, oh, all right, let's go. I'm going to do that again next time. I think that those things can help.
You went from wanting to throw your clubs in the pond to, "I'm going to buy me a better set." That's how quickly our brains work.
Exactly.
It's so funny you talk about things that are non-baseball, that we're trying to get these kids to understand, and the growth mindset and the patience. Families hire me to get their kid recruited. And I love that. But I tell them, I'm going to help you with this journey. I'm going to make the journey a lot easier just because I've done this a long time and I've been a coach a long time. But I go, you're really hiring me and you need to understand this before we even talk about an investment into me. You're hiring me to be your kid's mentor. You're hiring me to teach them how to be prepared for the journey they're going to go through, let alone their sport. Because if I can get them to understand who they are, really get them to understand their self-worth and their value as a human being, and get them comfortable talking to a great coach like you on the phone or over Zoom, that's my victory. That I've helped them figure out who they are. And I think if I ever go back and take over a college program again, I'm going to be so much better because that's my mindset now. It was always, how do I get them ready to compete against Swarthmore, instead of how do I get them ready to handle everything that's going to be thrown at them so they don't crumble when a bad day happens. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong at all. I think a lot of these things that we can teach them are lifelong lessons, and that's really what I feel like a coach does is we sort of plant seeds,
Yeah.
and sometimes we're not around to see when the tree is completely grown, right? They
Right.
may they may think back to that thing 10 years ago that you told them, or the experience that they had in college and the things that they had to overcome, the time you benched them that they had to overcome. And it, maybe they think that was the best thing for me. The best thing for me was that this bad thing happened and I got through it and I'm okay. And now I realize if another bad thing happens, I can get through it and I can be okay.
Yeah. And Coach Midkiff was there through the good and the bad. He never left my side, right? 12
Yeah,
years later, I'm in my 30s and I know I can still call coach, and he's going to have advice for me. He's going to have support for me.
100%. And
Isn't that the great thing, what we do?
that's what is so great about it is that you are investing in people, and being in a people business is, I think, the coolest because
Yeah.
you could make widgets, you can make apps or whatever people do, but people then invest in other people. And so, if you talk about John Wooden or you talk about any of these great coaches,
Right.
their legacy is the people that they mentored who then mentored others and mentored others. And so it just
Right.
goes on. And Coach Wooden's not around to see it, but it still lives on because of him. And that's a really cool thing to just think about, that I could be impacting people for many years to come if hopefully I'm doing it right. And we all question that, but I think if we put the people first, and we talk about this in recruiting, is get the right kid over the best kid.
Yeah.
And so that kid that we can pour into, we can invest in, that will reciprocate and want to pour back into the program and give back to us too.
Yeah.
And when you learn that, I think you've really got something, whether it's in coaching or just in everyday life. I think it's really important.
Yeah. Coaches don't like to think about their legacy the way the community wants to talk about it. I could probably look at your phone list, how many of your alums you've talked to in the last 3 months, and how many weddings you've been to, and how many graduation pictures you have of you and your guys. And that's your legacy. That it's not how many World Series did you go to, how many conference championships, how many young men did you impact and still count on you today.
Yeah, it's always, and we just saw some this past weekend, and it's just really those memories come back immediately of when you were in it together, and then you see them and they have, like you said, a job and they're married, or they're coaching maybe a youth team, or they're invested in a program in their community, and you go, man, this kid's awesome. And I'm just really fortunate to, I think all of our players are just incredible people, and they come from incredible families, and they come in, I think, already in a really good spot, most of them. But I know there are things that we can teach them through the adversity, through, a lot of our kids maybe have never gotten a B.
Yeah.
And the first time that happens, that's a jarring experience for someone. And so I got it out of the way early, but some people waited later in life to do that. But they have to overcome that. And hey, guess what? We have a game today. You have to perform. You have to be ready to go. Just like in life, there might be something that happens that you have to put to the side and focus on whatever it is that you need to accomplish.
Yeah, put that frustration, put that anxiety, put that into your effort today. Get some of that out of your system. Use that bad energy and turn it into something good. So I love it. Coach, it's obvious to me why you've done so well. It's such a hard school to recruit to. And I want to get into that because you're at a very prestigious school. If people don't know, I want to give you a chance to really talk about your school and why it is considered one of the top academic schools in the country. And there's nothing harder than recruiting to those type of schools. So I'm really interested to hear what your philosophy's been on growing your program, building the roster every year, because you can't go out and just get a kid with a 21 ACT and a 2.8 who throws 90 mile an hour and get him in the door. Even if he gets him, you can admit him. Is he going to be able to handle the curriculum? Is mom and dad going to be able to afford the bottom line? So I'm really interested in your philosophy on recruiting and some of those things you share about your college and why the price matches the value.
Absolutely. So Swarthmore is what many describe as a little Ivy. So we're a small liberal arts school. We're just outside of Philadelphia. And we also have engineering, which is a nice piece to have for a liberal arts school.
Rare. Yeah.
Swarthmore's, yeah, we're always ranked in the top 2 to 3 to 4 in any of the assessments of colleges and universities for liberal arts colleges. So really it's one of the best educations in the world. Low acceptance rate, all those things that matter to some people. But it's what I tell people is that they're surprised that we have a pool of kids that can actually get in and that can play. And I respond with our country's in pretty good shape because there are a lot of kids out there who are doing really well and
Yeah.
are really bright kids and they work hard and they have this other thing which is baseball and they work hard at that. And so it actually is really affirming to me to meet these kids on a regular basis around the country, knowing there are a lot of really talented, good people who want to come play at our school or any of the other high academic schools. And we all have full rosters. We could
Yeah.
all find enough. So that's really, when it comes down to it, we're looking for kids who have the grades, who have the test scores, but also they do something else. They have a focus on their community. They have a focus on some other interest that they make someone else's life better. And somehow they have time to do this. And I'm so impressed when I see these kids that how much they're doing. Oh, I started this company or I wrote this book and they're still in high school. And it's incredible to see who these kids are. As we're going around the country looking for these kids, we look for kids that, number one, we think, like you mentioned, that can handle it
Yeah.
because it is hard. And we tell them this is the hardest thing you're ever going to have to do. You're going to have to play baseball. You're going to have to lift. You're going to have to train on your own outside of practice. Also, your course load will be really hard. You're not taking easy stuff. You're taking hard stuff. Everything we have at Swarthmore is difficult. So you're
Right.
challenging yourself every single day, and then you have to come down to the baseball field or to practice or to the weight room and give all of this again. So
Yeah.
you're emotionally, it's tough. And so as we're looking in the recruiting process, we're looking for the kids who can handle it. But one thing I love is to find a kid who has a great sense of humor
Yeah.
and can have a conversation. And
Yeah.
it's real because it's also, there are kids who are too polished as well. Or
That's
you,
right.
it's like, are you reading off a script? It's a feel that you get when you have done this for a long time, and
Yes.
being able to see the genuineness in someone and in this recruiting process. And so really we're trying to read people in this process. The baseball part generally takes care of itself, but I can promise you many of our best players, what turned out to be our best players, were not our highest touted recruits. It's really the grit factor is real. The going through roadblocks and having disappointments early in life is the absolute best thing that can happen to someone. And that to me is something we look for, that this kid wasn't always the best player on his team. He got cut as a 13-year-old from the freshman team or whatever it happens to be. Those are defining moments, and it tells a lot about somebody, how they respond to that. The fact that they're still playing and they're still competing, and that maybe they drove an hour and a half to find a team to play on just to keep playing. That says a lot about somebody and how they can handle their business in college.
You're seeing it more and more when I'm working with businesses. They're asking applicants that question. Talk about a time where you struggled or had to overcome something. I think it's a great question to talk to recruits about, because they need to understand we're not looking for flaws. We're looking to see you have the ability to deal with flaws. Can you handle it if you go 0 for 12 in 4 games? Can you handle it if you give up 8 runs in the 6th inning against the number 2 team in the conference? Can you handle it if you fail a test and your girlfriend makes up for you? We're trying to figure that stuff out and trying to figure out, what do I got to teach you when you get here? And what can I be confident that you're going to be able to do on your own? You're already ahead of the game. Is that something you're thinking about when you're recruiting?
Yeah, it is so refreshing if a recruit says, you know what, coach, my sophomore year, I was an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
I could not get my stuff together. My assignments were late. I couldn't hit water if I fell out of a boat. It just was not a good year for me. But I put this plan in place for myself. This is how I did it. I asked for help, right? That's something that, as up until recently, I didn't think much about, but especially for guys, we don't ask for help.
Right.
So if I know there's a player who is willing to seek out my help, our staff's help, services that we have at the college, that says a lot about who that person is, and it makes them stronger, not weaker, which is, we look at, if you ask for help, you're weaker, but it makes them much stronger. And we know that they'll be able to manage their problems as opposed to hide their problems, and then something bad could happen.
I was working with a kid the other day on just this very idea. And the kid goes, Matt, I'm so nervous to talk to a college coach. And I go, well, own it. If you're going to call Coach Midkiff and tell him you want him to recruit you, don't be afraid to say right in the beginning of the conversation, hey, coach, if I get a little quiet during this call or I take a little time, I'm just letting you know I get real nervous when I don't know people, when I don't know them well. So don't take it I'm not excited. Don't take it I'm not passionate. Don't think I'm not excited about your school. Just, I'm real nervous talking to you. What does that do for you when you hear a kid own up to who they are and take ownership over who they are and what they're dealing with?
It shows that they have good insight into who they are and can appreciate that they have weaknesses, because I'm sure they're not going to bat 1,000 or throw every pitch 100 miles an hour. Right off the bat, I know they're willing to admit that I have this weakness and I'm working on it. And I just wanted to let you know up front, I might be a little socially awkward. When you're working in high academics, you get sometimes some kids that are socially awkward.
That's
And
for sure. Yeah.
And our guys own it, and they have fun with it, and they joke about it. That, hey, coach, you got some stuff to deal with here. We're not all polished. We don't always say the thing that should be said or do the thing that should be done. It's refreshing for me too, because it's like when you watching somebody walk and and then they trip and then they do the little jog for about 10 feet as if they intended to just do a 10-foot jog and then continue walking. And those are the kind of things that I love that. And when I do it, I laugh at myself because,
exactly.
But I just think it's one of those things. It's so funny, and it's just, and everybody knows what I'm talking. Everybody's seen that person
Right.
do that, and you're like, they know they weren't jogging, but they thought they covered it up, right?
Right. Right.
As people, we just tend to want to cover up the things that we think are negatives, but as you said, it's so refreshing, and it should be empowering for an individual to say, this is who I am, coach. Because if I pick him, then he knows I'm taking him flaws and all.
Right. It's a great relationship.
It's a great relationship.
Great way to start the relationship.
Exactly. And I have them too. And I'll tell the players what my flaws are, the things that I don't think I'm as good as a coach as I should be, and that our coaches are always working to get better, and we want their input. What did you like about this practice? What did you not like about this practice? Are you getting enough of what you need to be a better player? I think my first year I would have never asked that, or maybe my first 5 years I would have said, "This is the practice. This is what we're doing. I know what's best." But as you get older, you realize how little you actually know.
Yeah. And it's, you've got a bunch of people that all are trying to do the same thing. And they all have, hey, if we all have that opinion, if we're all sharing the growth of that, it's only going to get better. But I love the ownership that you're talking about, because for me, it's a great statement from a recruit that I'm going to be honest with you. So, coach, when you ask me if my shoulder's hurting or my elbow's hurting, and I go, it's nothing. Now I'm worried. Is your elbow hurting? Am I going to lose you for the next 18 months because you won't tell me it's hurt and we're not doing the treatment or giving you the rest you need? So I love it when a kid's honest on the phone right out of the gates, because then I start going, okay, this is a kid that's going to be honest with me all the time then, or at least I can hopefully that they're setting that precedent.
Absolutely. And as you said, it starts in recruiting. And the worst thing that can happen, I think, is that one of the two parties or both don't understand what they're agreeing to.
That's right.
So exactly. If the family thinks it's going to look like this, my kid's going to come in, he's going to start, this is what the coach told me, he's going to have no problem as a freshman stepping in and starting, and then he doesn't. Now those expectations have not been met, and so the coach is the bad guy at that point. As long as the coach didn't say that, then the family is in the player. They're kind of in the wrong. But if the coach said, "Oh yeah, you're going to start, you're going to be my guy," and then if Mike Trout walks in, am I going to not play Mike Trout, right?
That's right.
So I'm not going to promise you anything but an opportunity and my best effort.
That's right.
And in return, I expect your best effort, right? And so if those things are aligned, I think families really they feel more comfortable, and there's not that everybody's talked to a family that hates the coach that recruited their kid and this guy transferred here. And so I just think that it needs to be like a contract, and that both sides understand what's our purpose here? What am I giving to you? What are you giving to me? And then everybody can say, "Hey, we both lived up to our end of the agreement," and it ends up being a fantastic 4 years. Whether that turns into a starting spot or a championship or whatever, it doesn't matter, because everybody understands that they got what they went into the process to get.
Yeah, your job is to put the best team on the field. So that might be you. That might be you learning for a year. That might be you playing a part-time role. That might be you spending this year getting stronger and faster and really understanding pitches and really listening and really diving into the coaching we're giving you. And how quickly you grab all that and grasp it is how that role increases. I love that you're almost giving families a range, saying, this is what it could be. Yeah, you might come in, but we've got an All-American third baseman. We've got 2 all-conference shortstop and second baseman. So you want their at-bats, you got to come in and really earn it. And they've proven it, right? So we want you, but there's a process here. There's a timeline that you might have to go through. Is that the way it needs to be?
I think so. And I think we all think that we're going to step in and be the starter, right? It doesn't matter who's there. And that's really, I don't want somebody that says, "You know what, I'm fine with being a backup."
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to come in, I'm going to win that job, coach. Awesome. What if you don't?
That's right. Good question.
Right. What's your mindset if you don't? And if the answer is, "I'm going to work until I do," let's go.
That's right.
I'll take 50 of you. Let's go.
That's right.
But if it's, I'm going to win that job, okay, you better, because I think you're going to be highly disappointed if you don't. And then the sulking comes into play. And I also think kids don't realize the difference in physicality, and especially now, an 18-year-old, and you could be playing against 23, 24-year-olds, right?
Yeah.
That's a huge difference.
I didn't have to coach through COVID, but to be 18 and you got a 24-year-old on the mound, and I can't even imagine how hard that is for that kid.
Yeah, and like we said, everything's gone up because I think a lot of kids have seen the importance of the weight room
Yeah,
and these different training techniques and things that can make them metrically better.
yeah,
Uh, but we're a traditional 4-year institution, so we don't have grad school, we don't have fifth years, and so now with the landscape, we are competing at schools that do, which
right.
means if I have to choose between a kid who's a little more physical, but maybe doesn't have the skills quite yet, I might go in that direction because I only get 4 years, whereas some of these other kids maybe are fifth or sixth years. So these are things that we do think about, even though the portal doesn't necessarily directly impact us at our school, it can impact how we formulate our roster and go compete with other schools.
That's right. All right, Coach, I could talk philosophy stuff with you all day long, but I've got to get some hardcore baseball in with you because I want to share your wisdom on this. What are just maybe one or two characteristics that are non-negotiables for you when you're recruiting? Are there things that, and you can, if you want to break it into hitters and pitchers, fine, but are there some things that you've got to see, you've got to hear in a recruit before you'll pull the trigger to make an offer?
Yeah, I really think effort has to be a non-negotiable. And I heard a coach say this, and I should preface this by saying anything I've ever learned, I've stolen from somebody else, just
Yeah,
like most of us, right?
yep,
But he said, I'm not here to coach your effort. And I think that, especially at schools where the academics are going to be draining in your day, that has to be internal. Your effort has to be self-made,
yeah,
and you have to want to do the extra.
yeah,
The other thing is competitiveness. If we're watching somebody at a showcase, I want a little bit of fire if they strike somebody out. I want when that kid hits a double, a little bit of a fist pump. Now
yeah,
the double celebrations have gotten a little out of hand, but
yeah,
that's the old school in me coming
yeah,
out.
me too.
It's fun. We'll say it's
Yeah,
fun. But I want to see that even in this showcase game that really doesn't matter,
yeah,
you're competing. Or if you're at one of our showcase camps on our campus, that you're competing, you're trying to win, and you're high-fiving teammates. I was just with an alum the other day who played third base for us on our World Series team. And the reason I picked him, we had a showcase at our school, a camp, and I think it was a no hitter for both sides. It was that, and the pitching wasn't very good. It was just a bad day.
yeah,
And I picked him. I said, I want this kid because he was the only one that sprinted to his position every time. He didn't show that great. He did not look like an all-world player.
I,
But I said, that's the kind of kid I want in my program. And, fast forward a few years, he's an amazing third baseman at the D3 level. Now I just saw him and he's crushing it in the business world and doing great. So,
awesome.
that stuff translates and we watch everything. I can promise you, if a family or a player's watching this, we watch everything and we evaluate everything. And the way you treat your parents, we watch that
Thank
very
you.
closely. Because
Love it.
if mom's carrying your bag or you're giving her lip because she said, honey, I think you did great, and you said, no, I didn't do that, we don't want that kid. We
Yeah,
want that's the closest relationship that we can evaluate is you and your parents. And if you're not treating your parents with respect, then I'm just some guy that coaches baseball. How are you going to treat me?
yeah. It's such a good point, and I hear it from almost every coach I talk to, and it's one of the things I always talk about. But I've got to talk to my daughter about it because we have such a fun relationship together that I think if a college coach was watching her, they would quickly misperceive the the goofiness and how we tease each other for disrespect. And I don't think kids understand that, like you said before, there's always somebody watching, and you're watching everything. You might get to that game 30 minutes early just to see BP and how they handle themselves in the dugout, right?
No question about it. We love to see when things go poorly for the player, that's when it really becomes obvious who they are.
Exactly.
And I'm sure every coach you talk to will say this. I'd rather see a guy strike out 3 times that I
Yeah.
know can play, but see him strike out 3 times and see who is he.
Yeah.
Right. And they talked about Tony Gwynn, and he was a guy that if he was 0 for 4 or 4 for 4, you couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah.
And you're talking about arguably the greatest hitter of all time. So
Yes.
I think those lessons are so important for kids to understand that it's not if something bad will happen, it's when. And the only thing that matters is how do I respond to that adversity, to that situation when it happens, because you're going to get another chance. That's what's great about baseball. If
Yep.
you left the bases loaded in the sixth, guess what? You might come up in the ninth with a chance to win the game. And I need you to not worry about what just happened, but to be everything you can be in that moment and go get the job done at that point.
What's next is all that matters, right? Yeah. The next at bat, the next pitch, that's all that matters. What's one piece of advice you give to parents? You just gave, hopefully, families that are listening to this, parents, student athletes that are listening to this, heard what you just said as advice to an athlete that's going through the recruiting process. It's great advice. What advice do you give to parents and student athletes that want to get recruited and are just starting and just don't know what to do to get somebody like you to pay attention to them?
I think the starting point has to be to get information from somebody who has been through it and who understands what the process is. I think a lot of information happens in the stands at games. A lot of it
The absolute
probably
worst.
right. And so I always, when I talk to families about the recruiting process, I always liken it to when you buy your first house and you go through this process and you learn all these things. And then at the end, you have this house that you probably wouldn't have bought had you known all the things that you found out along the way. And
Right.
I think, we're seeing so many transfers and so many unhappy families and kids. I think it's because they're not guided by somebody who understands what they're doing in this process and understands what coaches are looking for, understands what things should be important to me in this decision.
Yeah.
And generally it's what is my Twitter announcement going to look like? So these things that don't matter. And again, I always make relationship analogies, but I'll say I want the big wedding, but I'm not really worried about the marriage. And
Right.
so we have to make sure we're making that decision on all the things that are really core values for our family. And of course, everybody wants to play, but go somewhere where the coaches and the players and everybody will be excited for you to be there, right? Where when you say, Coach, I'm coming to your school, you hear yes, let's go. I'm excited. I'm so happy you're coming to my school. That's how you know you picked the right place, that the coach is
Yes.
pumped to have you, as opposed to didn't answer my call. Coach, I'm applying. I want to come play for you, and you don't get an email back for a month. That should tell you something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just think as a family and most of these families, they have gotten to where they are and they've raised great kids because they have good intuition and they know what they're doing. And then when it gets to this process, people lose their minds and they act like they don't understand anything. They don't know that coach doesn't seem like a good guy or that this coach would absolutely take care of my son if anything happened.
That's right.
Those are things that we make those judgments every day, but this process, we throw those things out the window. I'd say trust themselves in this process. Trust your gut when you have these interactions and help your son or daughter understand and read the tea leaves of what this kind of means when I get this message back, or I get this message back, or I don't get a message back.
That's right. Yeah. What's it going to be like when you go there if it takes 4 weeks to return a phone call? What's it mean when you ask for something that you're passionate about or nervous about and they give you a one sentence answer or don't worry about it? Those things are valuable. You have to listen to those things. All right, Coach. One piece of significant advice that maybe you've gotten over the years that you find yourself sharing with others, and it doesn't have to have anything to do with baseball or sports or recruiting. Is there just something that you think our audience can learn from?
Yeah, I have a couple. So the first one I would say is be comfortable in who you are, be comfortable in talking to people, take a public speaking class, do something out of your comfort zone, be able to have a discussion with someone. I think the way we talk to people, being able to have that discussion in an interview or in any sort of situation is invaluable. It really is. It helps you get that job. It helps you be invited to that golf outing. It really helps you to just meet people and be able to interact. And if you can do that, a lot of maybe the things that you're just not as talented in certain things, whether it's academically or physically, the way you interact with people really, because I have to edit this out. The way you interact with people can overcome a lot of your misgivings. It can really put you in a better position to be successful, really. It's how you speak to people. And then that kind of goes into the second one, which is invest in people, care about people, know things about them, or just care enough to ask. And if you're able to do that, it really opens that person up to having a good interaction with you. And I think, I've never thought of myself as the smartest person out there, not even close, not the most talented baseball player or coach or anything along those lines. But my parents definitely raised me to respect people and to be kind to people. And I think those things sometimes are missing, and respect and kindness can definitely go a long way and help you overcome any sort of like Florida public schools like I was raised in. And I think again, I just try to not take yourself too seriously. It's my job I take seriously, but I don't take myself seriously. And I think our players would say that I might be the least mature person in our program because I want them to have fun. I want to have fun. I'd sell insurance if I, didn't want to have a good time. No
Let's
offense.
say that. You just stay coaching baseball for as
Yeah,
long as you
no offense to insurance salesmen, but
Oh,
I do it because I love it, and I think coaches they coach because they love it, and we all get into it because we love it, and I think sometimes the system can change those things, unfortunately, but I think we as coaches try to make it as pure as possible and keep it about the players and keep it about the families, and if we do that, then I think we'll continue to thrive in college athletics and high school athletics and make people feel good and enjoy their athletic experiences, which ultimately is what we've set out to do.
Yeah, yeah. It comes down to the golden rule: treat others as you want to be treated, and it's amazing how far that can stretch when kids and adults live by that, and how attracted you are to them when they're recruits. That you can see that.
Totally. And I want players who can joke with me, can laugh it off because it can get stressful. The
Yeah,
eighth inning of a game that's tied in conference is stressful. The coming down from an exam is stressful. These things are stressful. So we're going to be together a lot. We should be able to have fun together. You shouldn't marry somebody that you can't laugh with,
that's right.
right? And so this is a relationship. It's something that is you're tied to this person with this decision forever. And you may only be together for 4 years, but the decision lasts for a lifetime. So making sure that you make that right call and that the person that you're turning your child over to is invested in helping raise them and helping instill values in them is very important and way more important than are the uniforms awesome and what does the locker room look like.
That's right. That's right. Coach, I would send my kids to play for you in a heartbeat, and so impressed with you and all you've done and all you continue to do and the care that you put into raising these young people. And I hope you don't mind if I call you a friend from here on out, because I've
Absolutely. Would be
enjoyed
honored, Matt. Would be honored.
I've enjoyed every second of this, and I look forward to future calls. So good luck the rest of the season. I know you guys will give everybody hell, and nobody's going to want to see you as you walk down on the field, but we'll be cheering for you. Thanks for doing this, Coach.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate you having me.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of Significant Coaching. A big thanks again to Coach Matt Midkiff for sharing his insight, his awesome experience, and his great wisdom from the world of college baseball. If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to give us a 5-star rating and leave a quick review. It really helps more coaches, athletes, and families discover the show. And don't forget, if you're looking for resources to support your recruiting journey, or you'd like to bring me in to speak at your school, your team, or your organization, head over to CoachMattRogers.com. You'll find my book, Significant Recruiting, my blog, The Recruiting Launchpad, and info on how to get in touch. And I always encourage you to sign up for our weekly newsletter where you'll get my weekly blog and get updates that not everybody gets to see and hear. Thanks again for listening. And as always, keep showing up, keep leading, and keep chasing significance.